What is up, everybody? Bluebird here, and welcome to Cipher Secret. Today we will be reading chapter 36. Daniel never hated his body as much as he did now. Waking up in the middle of the night was one thing. He would be able to fall asleep again easily. However, waking up in the middle of the night with an endless thirst, another completely different thing. The room's shadows danced on the wall in front of him. The night was dead silent. Ah, how he wished he was back in his own original bed, on Earth, away from any imaginable danger. Kicking the sheets aside, Daniel jumped off the bed, and his eyes darted around the room until he found what he was searching for, Dana's sword, still carved on the wall. He tried to pull it off, and concluded it was stuck. After a few more tries, feeling like King Arthur himself, he managed to get it out of the wall. At least I have something to protect myself with, Daniel thought. He opened the door and tried to be as quiet and as sly as possible, walking through the long corridor ahead. Everything seemed to be a potential danger, from the minimal sounds coming from outside to Daniel's own shadow. Just then, when the boy let his guard down for 2 seconds, he saw something in the corner of his eyes, a creature, hiding on one of the doors, its eyes staring at him intently. Within a heartbeat, Daniel dashed up the stairs and began screaming internally, holding the sword above his head and ready to attack if needed. He wasn't going easy on whatever the creature was. He was younger and unprepared for anything that involved violence, but he still had a life and was ready to die for it. He quickly entered the nearest room upon spotting the creature. He could see it better this time. It had the same height as him and it appeared to be harmless, but you could never be sure. Whilst running, he bumped into something, a fridge. "Oh my God, I did it!" Daniel gasped, not sure if he should be relieved yet. He let his guard down for another second and lowered the sword, then felt a hand on his shoulder, along with a hot breath on his ear. "Hello, dearie," the voice said. Daniel's eyes widened as he gaped, before shoving the creature aside. "Oh my gosh, Dan, you should have seen your face!" It was Dana. He should have seen that one coming. "What are you doing out of bed?" Daniel screeched before his hands flew to his mouth. He had to be silent. "I'd ask the same," his sister retorted. "I was thirsty," Daniel answered, opening the fridge and grabbing a glass cup from the counter. He poured himself some water before closing the fridge again. He took a sip and leaned against the wall. "What's your excuse?" "I just came here to tell you something very important," Daniel explained as she took a long breath. Her brother knew it couldn't be anything good, but, out of curiosity, allowed her to proceed. "Daniel and Asaph sitting on a tree, Kissing," she sung happily. Daniel eyed her for a second, and then everything sunk in, and he flushed hard. Dana smirked as that was the reaction that she had wanted. Her brother opened his mouth to speak, but nothing came, although she already knew what he was going to ask. "You want to know how I found out, right? Well, long story short, I saw the way you look at him." Daniel tried to find something to retort. "Well, you like Dipper," he counterattacked. "And you like Asaph," she replied with a slight blush, making him flush harder. "Shh!" he hissed. "What if Asaph wakes up and hears their conversation?" "Ha! You admit it!" she yelled. "I would never date a boy," Dana guessed. Daniel clamped his mouth shut. "Ah, but how would you know if it's bad if you never tried it? Admit it, he's cute and you know it," she teased. Daniel groaned and accidentally dropped the glass, breaking it. "Shit!" he cursed, trying to fix his mistake quickly by secretly hoping nobody had heard the sound of shattering glass. His wishes went unheard as the twins heard footsteps coming closer. Distracted with the sound, Daniel accidentally cut himself with a glass shard. He only noticed when he turned around and his finger was covered in blood. "Oh, shit!" he exclaimed louder. Dana turned to him and her eyes widened slightly. Finally, they spotted a silhouette in the corner of their eyes. It was Asaph. Dana visibly relaxed when her poker face became a grin. "Oh man, you came just in time. Daniel and I were having a little midnight chit-chat, and he's in love." "Don't you dare," he said in a demonic voice. Both Dana and Asaph's eyes widened as they eyed him with fear and surprise. They had never heard something like that before. They had heard the mentors use that kind of voice, yes, but not the apprentices, not Daniel. "Oh, sorry, I didn't know what just happened," Daniel apologized. They stood there, completely motionless, without knowing what to say. Just then Asaph looked at his finger and the mess on the floor, wondering how that even happened in the first place. "You're bleeding," he said, pointing to Daniel's finger. It's no big deal." The red-haired boy waved his good hand dismissively. He had to admit it was kind of a big deal, but he wasn't comfortable with Asaph so close to him, especially under his current predicament. Of course it is, Asaph exclaimed silently, wishing not to wake the rest of the castle. He got a band-aid and put it on Daniel's finger carefully. Daniel tried to avoid looking at his crush, and then saw Dana behind him, mouthing, Kissing. Daniel blushed hard, accidentally thinking of him and Asaph kissing passionately. Curse his mind. Dan, are you okay? You look like this place could have been set on fire. The black-haired boy poked his friend. It took 5 seconds before Daniel could react. His first instinct was to scoot away from Asaph as much as he could. We should just get back to our bedroom. Someone might wake up or something. He then looked at the mess he had made. But we should clean up first. And take that sword. Asaph pointed at Dana's sword, which was still lying on the floor where Daniel had left it. The latter was surprised to see it was still there. Good point. Dana fell. She hit the ground, but no sound was made, and she felt no pain. Well, that's new, she commented while standing up. Everything around her was white, and there was nothing around her except for a gray door. Oh, shit's gonna go down now, she whispered to herself, knowing it was a dream. And not a pleasant one, apparently. Surprisingly, the door opened by itself and slowly revealed what was behind it. Dana stood up and made her way over to the door, curiosity getting the best of her. She stopped by the door. 3 very old-looking women were sitting in 3 rocking chairs, each one in order. The first one, dressed in yellow clothes, was making a fine red thread that seemed to come out of nowhere, like it was made of magic. She paid no attention to Dana watching her. The second woman, dressed in blood-red clothes, was measuring the thread carefully, while not noticing the girl watching her work. The threads were very, very small, which made Dana wonder what they would be used for, seeing as it didn't seem very useful. And then the last one came, dressed in blue clothes. The woman was holding a big blue pair of scissors. She slowly placed the thread the gold-dressed woman had made between the blades. Dana leaned a little closer in order to get a better view. She was still standing by the door. The woman looked up. Her eyes were completely lifeless as she grinned and cut the thread into even smaller pieces. "You're not a very lucky girl, are you?" she asked. Everything vanished. Dipper yawned as he stood up from Bill's bed, and, speaking about the demon, he was gone. Pulling the sheets aside, Dipper began walking towards the stairs. Even if he had never seen the castle before, the directions were clear to him. It was like he had been there before. Once he reached the kitchen, all the mentors and apprentices were there. Eating breakfast? Dipper was utterly confused by the scene. What's going on here?" he asked, making the others turn to him. "We're eating," Beatrice answered. I can see that, but I thought demons didn't need to eat," Dipper questioned. Bill shrugged at him, but Knessi seemed to be willing to give him a proper answer. "In fact, we don't need to eat, but food gives us extra energy, which we will need for today's training," he explained. "Also, it has a good taste." Dana seemed excited. After everything she had gone through last night, it was a strange dream, whose meaning she knew very well, and all she needed was some adventure to get it off of her head. She wondered what would happen today. There were so many possibilities. Perhaps some action was going to cure her from her problems. Maybe then they would even disappear, right? Those voices, those thoughts. They would be gone in a few hours, only to come back with all their strength. Well, she just had to stop thinking about that. "So, what are we going to train today?" she asked. "It's easy." Bill took a gulp of his coffee. "Today, kids, you're going to learn how to fly."